Bom dia. That's the end of my Portuguese. So I hope your English is good, because that was it. Yeah. So I'm going to talk to you about retail media. Surprise, at a retail media conference. But what I'm going to do today is we're going to start with telling you what's going on, the detail of what it is. We're going to give you a brand perspective. We're going to give you a retailer perspective. But also we're going to actually talk about a little mini strategy creation. And then we're going to wrap up with where the future is for retail media. Sounds okay? Excellent, excellent. So a little bit about me. I actually do 3 different things. I work on the brand side to help them think through their retail media strategy. Got clients all over the world. And I work on the retail side to help retailers like these guys here set up their retail media networks. So clients Australia, New Zealand, Latin America, UK, and in Germany, most recent client, Douglas. So the other thing I do for my sins is I spend a lot of time crying over a laptop trying to write lots of reports around retail media. So if you're very stuck and you can't sleep tonight, I can give you one of these and you can fall asleep almost immediately. Yeah. So I've written about 300,000 words about retail media and digital commerce in the last few years. So I spent a lot of time thinking about it. So we're going to get some of that today and what I've been thinking and what I hear from people. So the key thing when you're talking about retail media, for everybody here who maybe is talking to their boss or trying to explain retail media, one of the key things I say is you should always bring them through the basics. And that's what I'm going to do right now. So what is retail media today? Retail media is on-site, off-site, in-store, giving you the ability to have amazing targeting, great insights, all built on first-party data that comes from the retailer. So when you're talking to people, you need to use this sort of language because most people don't really kind of get it. And we're going to talk a little bit about here as well. I'm sure it's going to come up through the morning, but you need to really understand the role of first-party data today. How does this all split up? Within on-site, we've got a thing called sponsored search, sponsored product. We've got display. We've got people using their CRM or even now sponsored brand video. Particularly the likes of Amazon, some of the folks in the US and coming to Europe is the use of video right through the flow online or through an app is very powerful. Off-site, we're talking about social media powered by those audiences, that data here, programmatic powered by those audiences, and digital out of home. This is a much smaller percentage of the overall picture. This particular here is very big in the US because their overall audience size is huge, but not so much in Europe. This is a little bit smaller in Europe. And here, obviously, is in-store. And the key point to note is the digitization of in-store is really rapidly changing. And the capability around technology around in-store, as we'll see in 2 minutes, is really the driver here. And what's happening then is, again, this is all based on this idea of targeting, insights, and the first-party data. So that's the model you need to have in your head when you're thinking about retail media and the individual ad units. What does it look like? Well, I've used some examples from around the world. Somebody has searched for multi-pack crisps on the Sainsbury's website. This is what it looks like. Very simple. It's got a little sign that says sponsored, and that's called a sponsored search or sponsored product ad. That's what it looks like in Carrefour. We've all seen these. What does this look like in terms of sponsored display? Well, this is Woolworths in Australia, the largest grocer in Australia. Huge big home screen on the website, bang, sponsored display. What does this look like when we're using a little bit more sophisticated type of targeting? Well, Unilever here are putting their helmets right beside where people are advertising for, or selling meat to talk about barbecues. So contextual advertising here, applesauce with pork, bang, easy, yeah? One of these things people are using a lot to use particularly online as what's called basket builders. In other words, to add your product contextually into when somebody's looking for product X and product Y is put together. So this is display again. But really what I want to point out, and one of the points when I come to, say, Portugal and many other markets, because I've been to 11 countries this year so far, everybody says, but our market is different. Everybody says that. And I'm like, now at this stage, I don't want to go, oh my God, here, do I have to? Yes, everywhere is different, but everywhere is the same in many respects. Because the one thing that is happening is the digitization of in-store is increasing at a rate of knots. And the place this is happening the most is in Europe, not in the US. Europe is leading the charge on what's possible with retail media in-store. And surprise, surprise, because obviously in Europe, many people are still shopping in stores, 80, 85, 95%. Whereas in the US, whilst a lot is still happening in store, there's still obviously a huge mega e-commerce businesses out there. So actually one of the points I would make to people, and I regularly make to people, is when you're thinking about retail media, it's interesting to look what the UK is, or the US is doing, but it's not comparable. What's happening in the likes of Australia or UK or Germany or France or Spain is actually more comparable for Portugal. So what's happening in the US is interesting, but not that relevant because of the scale of online. Really what we want to be talking about is what's happening in store. More on that in a second. Now, the fastest growing area in terms of distribution and in terms of retail media is the quick commerce apps. And I'm going to ask the audience here is how many people think they spend too much time on their phone? All the other people who didn't put their hand up are lying to me and to themselves, obviously, as well. Yeah? Most people in the world are walking around with this thing glued at the end of their nose, yeah, like that. Yeah? And this is one key insight to note, which is that this is becoming our portal to the universe. Yep. And as a result, these little quick delivery guys around the world are growing at the rate of knots. There isn't a city I've been to in the last 18 months, 2 years, which doesn't have the little guys on the bikes. You know those guys? Trying to kill you, dressed all in black. Yeah, those guys, yeah. Well, they are everywhere, like everywhere. Santiago in Chile, they're there. Auckland, New Zealand, yeah, they're there. They're everywhere, yeah. And so building ad businesses on top of these is one of the things that's happening because these companies lose money. And the only way they're going to fix that is by having advertising. And then retail media is extending out to where it's actually the whole store. This is Tesco in the UK did a deal with Pepsi, where the whole business, the whole stores, well, not every store, but 10 stores were done as a big wrap. So the ambition and the scale and the creativity associated with retail media is rapidly changing. It's not just a little sponsored search thing on the middle of an app. Clear? Yeah? No? Yeah? Right. So let's look at this from the retailer's perspective, because retail media is made up of two different arms of what we're talking about. There's what's happening on the retailer side, and there's what's happening on the brand side. But let's just look at it from the retailer's perspective. Retailers across the world are under pressure margin-wise and cost-wise. So I did some analysis of major retail chains around the world. This is their net profit margin. Even Walmart, with all their scale and capability, $500 billion organization, still has a margin of 2.4%. So all retailers, that's UK, France, US, Holland, and elsewhere in Europe, and Migros in Turkey, but it's the same in Australia, everything. All of these margins are around 3%. So the net margin the retailer has means they've got to think in terms of how can they earn other revenue, because this margin is going down because of the cost of inputs is going up. Retail media, if it's done correctly, can add a margin improvement. And one thing to note is these guys here in the US, Walmart, have a very interesting retail media business set up, and their chief exec is mentioning retail media on all of their calls with investors. So it's not going away. Retail media is here to stay because one of the reasons is the retailers need to improve their overall margins. But the other side of the coin, we all know there's a lot of privacy stuff happening. There's a lot of talk about cookies and so on. And as Satya Nadella from Microsoft said, retailers have the most valuable asset, intention-based consumer behavior data. This, to me, is what's going to reshape business models. And there's a lot more in this sentence than you would realize. But we've got Google out here. We've got the social media businesses out here. We've got the retailers who understand who you're shopping, who's shopping, why they're shopping, when they're shopping. And if they have loyalty programs, they know even more. I'll give you an example from the UK. The UK, I think, has 29 million households. And Tesco's loyalty program has 26 million members. So the Tesco loyalty program knows as much about the UK population as the census in the UK. They know everything about the person. And that is what's reshaping their business model. The level of data that they know about the shopper. And that level of data they know about the shopper is far ahead of what Google know, and far ahead of what social media knows. And it's also privacy first immediately. So this role of data, remember the visual I pointed at the front with the visual hat at the bottom, first party data, the role of first party data is super important. And as a result, these audiences the retailers have mean that across the world, they're doing partnerships with various TV channels to use those audiences to build out their scale and build out their proposition. There's going to be a lot more of these sort of partnerships with the likes of TikTok. Boots in the UK and Tesco have done partnerships with one of the big TV channels, ITV as well. So these partnerships are going to be a regular thing. In fact, trying to keep on top of the amount of partnerships is quite hard. Now, I've talked about the retailers. Let's just move and talk about the brands themselves. I'm sure there's some brand people in the room. So the brands that I talk to, and I've done maybe 30 workshops with brands over the last 18 months across 3 different continents. And what I would say to you is the top brands are all in on retail media. I've done workshops with 3 of these 4 in the last year. Procter & Gamble, retail media is now part of our core media principles. Unilever, we're using retail media to drive awareness as well as new product development. Ferrero are a client of mine. They're doubling their spend just in 1 year alone. Beiersdorf, Nivea, you know about those. They're moving a lot of their stuff actually in-house. It's one of the key things I'm seeing, that some aspects of retail media are being moved in-house, which is quite an interesting maneuver. This is a very famous food brand who happens to be a client of mine, but I'm not going to tell you their name, but everybody knows who they are. This is what they say on their internal training. We want to grow sales by leveraging retail media insights. We want to learn more about the people in the category, and we want to improve our communication. You notice they didn't say, I want to do more ads. Yeah. They didn't talk about sponsored products, sponsored search. They didn't do anything like that. They talked about how they want to leverage the insights, more about people, and leverage, like, it's about the insights from the data for this company. This is another one. Very famous UK brand. Why are we putting more money into retail media? We'd rather be in it, learning and help shape a better future, than saying we're not touching it until it's in the right state. And this is quite an interesting one, because if you read online what people are saying about retail media, it's like, it doesn't have this, it doesn't have this, it doesn't have this, so therefore I'm not going to do that because I don't want to do that because it's not perfect. I'm like, okay, if you're waiting for perfection, it's not going to happen. So get into it is what these guys are saying, because they're going to learn and find out what's working and what doesn't work. This is an interview I did with Unilever. This is about 3 years ago, and I just remember it was on behalf of a client of mine, and it was just a very compelling statement. We wish to create, test, scale, leading media and data capability so we can serve unmissable content to the right shoppers with the right measurement. We're very interested in cross-category partnerships to drive penetration and new to category. Now, I'm a marketing guy by trade. That's who I see myself as a marketing guy. And this is the conversations you have as a marketing person is, How do I get partnerships? How do I drive penetration? How do I drive new to category? Unilever are saying straight up, this is actually what we want to do. Now, I've worked with Unilever, interviewed Unilever people in, I think, 4 different markets. And as recently as 10 days ago, I was interviewing the Unilever folks in Central America. And he kind of said a version of the same thing, which was, we see retail media as the opportunity to drive penetration, drive new shoppers, drive new to brand. So they're very much on the same page around the world. Now, I was talking about in-store, and now we're going to get into it even more. Because the thing I am most excited about in retail media is, yeah, sure, there's fancy things around sponsored product and sponsored search and partnerships and what you can do offsite. But I want to clarify for people who say to me, our market is different, everybody buys in store. I'm like, yes, I know. Yeah. I'm going to quote you the CEO of Procter & Gamble on an investor call from July 2024. I generally believe that the majority of brand choice is made in a retail environment, and so retail media offers significant opportunity. So, my purpose here is to try and help you reshape how you think about it. One of the challenges I have when I do my workshops is the brand folks in these businesses say, what happens in store is not my responsibility. Well, that's the responsibility of the account manager. And yet 85% of their sales are coming from in store. And they're like, that's not my responsibility. But retail media, as we'll see, blurs those lines of what's responsible, what's possible for a brand and brand development. And my friend Andrew Lipsman, who is a great guy, he is great insights on what's happening with retail media. And he says this great point. In-store is emerging as the new TV, a mass reach advertising vehicle ideal for brands because digital surfaces are delivering what brands and linear TV lost. Now, in every single market in the world, linear TV is flatlined or going down because of you're all spending time on this. Yeah? And so the impact and reach of linear TV is going down. And so Andrew's thesis is that in-store can deliver some of that reach that's lost. And he actually has done some analysis. And he talked about the audience reach for some of the top TV channels in the US, and some of the top stores in the US as well, in terms of pure footfall. Now, I've worked with a company called Frasers in the UK, and they did exactly the same analysis. And the visual in the UK looks kind of the same, which is you put the TV channels on one side, and you put the retailers on the other side, and guess what? The actual footfall and traffic and what's happening is much bigger here than what linear TV can develop and show. And what brands are obsessed with reach. Linear TV is not delivering the quality reach that you can get anymore. Maybe the stores will help you deliver that reach. And how can they tap into this reach? Well, this is my client, Fraser Group. You'll see they're turning most touch points into digital capabilities. And the digitalization of the stores is driven by a couple of things, but one of the most important ones is the fact that, this is my client in Turkey, Migros in Turkey, you can see these really compelling digital screens. The reason why these are getting traction is, aside from the fact they're pretty cool, and you can do lots of cool messages, is that they have a sustainability story. I started my career out merchandising in store, and I used to put the cardboard end caps in myself and then rip them out every 2 weeks. And that's not a sustainability story in the current market, where we put things in and we rip them out and throw them out every 2 weeks. Cardboard, paper as in-store merchandising tools don't have a great sustainability story. The screens themselves can kind of do anything. The only thing that stops you with the screens is the power of your imagination. And I think this is one of the things that a lot of the marketers haven't worked out, is these screens can kind of do anything. This is my client in New Zealand, the Warehouse Group. And this is my client in Chile. And these very compelling digital screens, these ones here at the entrance, this is at the end of the aisle for Sainsbury's. These ones at the entrance do a different job to these ones here. And what I'm finding is when I'm talking to the marketers, they're like, that's the same. I was like, no, they're two different jobs. The job at the entrance is different to the job in the aisle. So one thing I would ask you to think about is that if we're going down the alley, going down the way of working with the screens, we need to think about our messages that we have right through the store. And this is probably my favorite one. So this is my client Senko Sud in Chile. And the reason why this photo is a bit grainy is that I took this photo. Because when I walked into the store, they had this big area of lots of gins for sale. And it's quite hard to work out which gin to choose. So they use their distinctive assets, and they have these very interesting digital screens right in the middle at kind of eye level, even at my eye level. And you go, which one will I buy? Blue, blue, bang, gone. Yeah? Because these moved. This wasn't just like a static image. This thing was moving around, telling a little story. And this is what I think I would encourage you as marketers to think about this. These screens can tell a story right when the person is deciding what to purchase. So this is why this is important from a marketer's perspective, because in many cases your national account managers or account managers are working with the stores. They don't know about messaging and in-store, and they don't know about storytelling. That's not their role. That's the role of the marketer. So, summary, rethink and reframe your view of in-store. In-store reaches shoppers in a high visibility and attention and intent environment. It's got new inventory and new technology and new creative opportunities. The technology on in-store screens is rapidly changing so much that I can't keep on top of it. And I keep meeting new people every couple of weeks, and they say, we do this cool thing around measurement. Wow, didn't know that. We're using machine learning to do predictive insights around whether somebody purchased when looking at that screen. So it's really interesting. The technology is rapidly changing here. The in-store customer journey allows for creative brand messaging and storytelling. It's not the cardboard end aisle that we all grew up with. The best execution will be shared across social media. So good executions, people put them up on their socials. So you're getting massive amplification if you do it correctly with good creative. Strategy. 2-minute strategy session on retail media. First thing you'll do, if you're a brand, you want to understand what you can do with retail media. First of all, and this is the message that I'd like you to bring back to the team, I want to win. You can win in store and on the digital shelf. You can leverage insights and targeting. You can attribute sales to investment. You can deliver full funnel brand objectives. You can reach high intent shoppers, and you can enhance the retailer partnership. Now this here, remember I talked about the brands a few minutes ago who are all in on retail media? Yeah. What is interesting is when you're in the discussions, and I have been in these discussions with the retailer here and the brand here, they're saying straight up, this is our opportunity for us to work together to grow the category, grow the brand. Particularly in the UK, many of these relationships have been very much like that. In the US, Walmart, they would have had that sort of relationships. In one of the meetings I had a few weeks ago, the brand was there and Walmart were there, and they were saying, we didn't have a good relationship and we want to use retail media as the trigger for us to have a better relationship. So that's what you can do with retail media. And you're all marketers, so you're familiar with this idea of a customer funnel: awareness, consideration, conversion, loyalty. If you're not, you're probably in the wrong meeting. So, off-site display, in-store, social media, connected TV, programmatic, they're in the zone of trying to create awareness. Sponsored display, remember the very first things I showed? In-store, brand pages, social media, they're in the zone of consideration. To get the sale, the conversion, that sponsored product because the person is searching for the product online. Or digital coupons. Digital coupons are huge in the US and in Australia and in store. and then for retargeting a sponsored display. Now you'll see 1, 2, 3 in-store. In-store delivers for brand awareness, in-store delivers for consideration, and in-store delivers for conversion. Whereas we used to just think, I better not bang the mic, we used to think that in-store just delivered for here. Or retail media just delivers for here. Now, retail media is totally full funnel. All the capabilities are there for brands to deliver on their brand objectives. So here is your 4-step approach for your strategy. First thing is define your objectives. Are you looking for awareness? Are you looking for penetration? Are you looking for sales? Product launch? Are you looking for frequency improvement? Learn more about the shopper category using the retailer data. Get your insights, then define the budget. Work with the retailer to select the right advertising activation, and then get the campaign out the door. Now you might say, Colin, this looks pretty straightforward. How come you're showing me this stuff? Because, you know, I've got a brain. Yeah? Now actually what happens is, in most cases, and I would have been this person as well, as I'm so busy in the day-to-day, I just get straight into activation. Let's do this, let's do that, let's do the other. And then I haven't thought about what I'm trying to measure or what I'm trying to do. So this is the area I'd like you to spend a little bit more time on. And the reason why that is the case is that you won't be able to have a decent conversation with your retailer to talk about retail media unless you've defined the objectives, which may sound very straightforward to say, but it is, the retailer will give you a different answer if you say, I really want to develop brand awareness. I really have a new product coming out, product launch, because you'll be using a different type of retail media if you're doing a product launch. You will also be spending a slightly different amount depending on this, but then your information coming from your data, coming from the first party data, may change your objectives, which will also then change your budget. So knowing what you're trying to do will help you work and get the optimum amount from working with the retailer. Does this make sense, guys? Clear? This is super important because what I only hear when I'm working with the brands is they went straight to here and they're like, why isn't it working? I put the campaign out. Why isn't it working? Well, what were you trying to do? No, we just bought some ads. Yeah, so just very important to set out for your objectives. Cool? But there are some challenges. I've touched on some there, which is that sometimes we're not that clear on our objectives, but they're just kind of more high-level challenges. And these challenges are very similar everywhere. So it's not a criticism, it's more things to observe so you can learn from them. The retailers themselves are great at buying and at merchandising and trade marketing, and they're amazing logistics businesses. We learned right through the pandemic how amazing retailers are at logistics. But a retail media business is a media business, and that's a kind of a different thing. So within the retailer, there's always these tensions between the retailing guys, if you will, who know how to do retailing, and the media folks trying to say, how do I build this incredible business on it? And it's different language, audiences, media sales, platforms, and they're competing not just with other retailers, they're competing with newspaper, TV, social media, advertising, and so on. So I don't criticize the retailers in this. It's a big challenge, and they've got to work on this challenge. So it's a tough one. And they've also got a structural challenge because they've got to think in terms of how do they build out their own data? How do they get better media sales team? How do they think about this inventory and so on? So the networks themselves are building out some of this as we speak. And so it's not an identical, I just do this thing and everything happens. No, they got to work a lot on creating the capabilities. And these are being built out across the globe in every country. But on the marketing side, there's a couple of challenges here as well. And I'm going to give you a suggestion on how you think about it. So in many countries, the structure is, I've got a brand marketing team, I've got a shopper marketing team, I've got a digital marketing team, I have a trade marketing team, there's account managers, or maybe some form of commercial managers. And they kind of all operate with different KPIs and different objectives, and they kind of all operate in, if you will, silos. And maybe these people here are meeting directly with the retail media networks. But what I'm seeing, or maybe these guys here, but I don't see these people in the room. Now, when I'm doing a workshop, and I did a workshop in Paris in February, the craziest thing happened. We're doing the workshop and everybody's in the room. We've got shopper, we've got digital, we've got trade, we've got account managers, we've got commercial managers. The brand marketing team left after 30 minutes, even though they were all supposed to be there, because they didn't really go and say, I understand what was actually going on with retail media in terms of how it's actually going to affect the impact of their brand in store, because they said that's the realm of shopper marketing. So what I would encourage you to do is say, right, how do we actually work together? Because retail media is a bit of everything. It's a bit of brand, it's a bit of shopper, it's a bit of digital, it's a bit of trade, and obviously it's related to sales as well. So just as a marketing team, what I'm going to encourage you to do is get more people in the room, or be in the room when you're talking about retail media. Because there's now new ways of working happening right within marketing organizations across the globe. And they're developing these new ways of working because there's new types of joint business plans being created. And so the marketing folks need to kind of have a look at what's happening with those joint business plans, with those new KPIs, new collaborations, and essentially new way of thinking. So in English, we have this phrase, the Trojan horse. And retail media is the Trojan horse for change in ways of working. I've seen these models across the globe, and people are very happy how some of these new ways of working are delivering new forms of revenue, new streams of revenue. Right, the final stretch, the future of retail media. Oh, yeah, here we go, yeah. So, again, you might go, Colin, what are you showing us this stuff with people walking by? I took this photo. Yeah, so that's why it's not very good quality. But I was in Serbia, in Belgrade, in May. And I'm walking down one of the main shopping streets, and this thing popped out in front of me. And that was about, you can see, I left the people walk through it because I was trying to show you the scale. So this is a pharmacy chain, and this screen popped like you would not believe. And this was 4K quality, but these little things are actually little dots, and you can see into the store. When the lights go off, you can see into the store. And it struck me, I went, oh, of course, the types of screens we're going to see are rapidly going to change. This was actually opposite a major tram stop, and there was 100 people right in front of the store looking at this all the time. And these were changing every 10 seconds. So in-store digital screen innovation is rapidly changing. So keep an eye out for that. There's some really cool stuff around the globe. And I also say the word innovation everywhere. The best innovation I've seen has been in Latin America and Serbia. So innovation can come from here too. There's less innovation in the US, much less innovation in the US. Best innovation has come from Europe and Latin America. Streaming, scrolling, searching, shopping. Don't actually recommend saying that on stage in case you mess it up. But this is our world today. Our thumb doing that. Yep. And these guys here, TikTok, is driving that change. TikTok is not good or bad. It's not a judgment on TikTok. But the TikTok short form video idea is now across everything. We got Reels on Instagram. When I open up my YouTube feed, there's loads of those little shorts as well. So the shorts and the screening, scrolling, searching, shopping idea is going to roll out to retail media. This quality visual and this type of visual will appear in store. 100% guarantee. So imagine TikTok ideas, but applied to in-store. Imagine influencers, but applied to in-store. You might think I'm crazy. That's happening already. So TikTokification, I call that. If you can't remember that, just remember streaming, scrolling, searching, shopping. And I want to leave you on this point. This is Nick Manning, who's founder of OMD in London, and a great guy, a really great thinker about marketing. And he said, we are witnessing the full-scale emergence of a new way to drive business and new marketing models. This is going to have a profound influence on the marketing services industry and even the agency world as well. He's an agency guy, so he sees the world through the world of agencies. So retail media isn't just a sponsored product. Retail media is a change in how we structure our teams. It's a change in how we think about brand creation. And it's actually a change in how marketing models are going to work in the future. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and for your interest.